Have you ever asked yourself, what is the problem with Africans? Why do we elect the worst leaders, then we go on complaining? Why? I have a reason that I'm going to share with you by the end of the video, but I will give you a glimpse. One of these reasons is tribalism, another reason is corruption, another reason is the love for money. All these reasons I'm going to explain by the end of the video. But now I want us to watch this video and look at how African leaders all over the continent of Africa, the 54 countries, African leaders are complaining and they're asking themselves, where is the spirit of Pan-Africanism? Where is the spirit that Kwame Nkrumah brought to Africa, that Jamal Abdel Nasser brought to Africa, that who is he? The guy from Congo, Patrice Lumumba brought to Africa. Where is it? This is a discussion that I want us to have, and then from it we shall have a deep critical analysis as to why Africans elect the worst leaders and then they start complaining. Without further ado, let's jump into this video.
How leaders like William Ruto were inflicted upon the African people. Look at the standard of leadership. When we're engaged in a struggle for national liberation, Modibo Keita, Sekou Toure, Kwame Nkrumah, America Cabral, Jomo Kenyatta, and so on. Now look at the type of leaders we have. Rubbish! How did we inflict these kinds of leaders on us? And look, you cannot miss the irony. Here is William Ruto sending Kenyan police people to Haiti to maintain law and order, to restore a certain level of stability at the instigation of the United States of America. Look at his own country. How can this irony be lost on us? And I'm hearing all kinds of comments and so on. What happened? When he went to see Joe Biden, after the discussions and so on, Kenya was designated as a non-NATO ally of the US. What does that mean? New colony, complete new colony of the United States of America. At a time when the African people, East, South, West, Central, and so on, are struggling against the establishment of US military bases across the continent, are struggling to enhance national sovereignty and so on, William Ruto goes to the US and agrees that his country is a non-NATO ally of the US. Unbelievable. Look, in 1963, when African leaders met in Addis Ababa, they sought to craft a united Africa, common currency, common foreign policy, common defense policy, and so on. What has happened to that? Is William Ruto working for that objective? Is he working for the objectives set out in the final resolution of the 1945 Manchester Conference of the Fifth Pan-African Congress? Puppet, clear Western puppet. And that's the problem. Today, William Ruto looks us in the face and says that, oh, the people's voice is important and that we have to listen to the people because it's the mandate of the people that we presidents exercise and so on. When did he come to that realization? After killing more than 20 Kenyans killed down. More than 100 Kenyans have been injured, some have lost their limbs and so on. Somebody must pay for those crimes. Those crimes committed against the Kenyan people. We've gone beyond the issue of the finance bill. Under whose orders did 20 Kenyans die? Under whose orders did more than 100 people suffer various degrees of injuries and so on? That's where we are today. And I'm so happy that the Kenyan people have decided that the demonstration continues unabated. And today, they are massing up in the streets, ready to demand full accountability from their government. Now, Kwame, look, our leaders, one of our problems is that our leaders have stopped thinking. Completely. They don't think anymore. These measures which William Ruto was introducing are impositions from the International Monetary Fund. They went to the International Monetary Fund for a bailout. They tax your people, tax the bread, and so on, so that you can generate resources to pay so-called foreign creditors. That is the crux of the problem. Meanwhile, look around Africa. Take Ghana. We have gone to the IMF 17 times. Every time we go to the IMF and we implement the measures they prescribe for us, our situation gets worse. To the extent that today in Ghana, I mean, the madness is so obvious. Our leaders are celebrating debt forgiveness, partial debt forgiveness. That's what they are celebrating. Our leaders are celebrating inflation at about 30%. Our leaders are celebrating what they call the haircut. People who put their pension money and so on in the banks, in treasury bills and so on, are having to lose large portions of their money. That's what our leaders are celebrating. Incredible. I can't believe it. And what is happening there is not substantially different from what is happening in Ghana. It's not substantially different from what is happening in Nigeria. It's not substantially different from what is happening all over Africa. What happened to us? He's talking about putting teachers in classrooms and so on. Meanwhile, he was vice president under Uhuru Kenyatta. For how many years? What happened to teachers in classrooms and so on? Now you turn around after killing 20 innocent people whose only crime is that they stood up for their rights and so on. You're telling us about the need to put teachers in classrooms and so on. When did he realize that? Unbelievable. You understand? Completely unbelievable. Look, the problem with Kenya, the problem with Ghana, and the problem with all other African countries is that the path, the economic path we have embarked on, can only lead to total disaster. Neoliberalism is not going to liberate us from poverty. Neoliberalism is not going to free resources for industrialization. This neoliberal craze can only push us deeper and deeper into the hole. And that is what African leaders ought to realize. And if they don't realize, we the citizens have a responsibility to kick them out of office and to bring into office new leaders who are properly focused on achieving the objectives of the national liberation movements, which were very clear. And the objectives of the national liberation movement were clear. One, the rights of the African people to elect their own leaders and to choose their path. The ownership of African resources by Africans, and the exploitation of African resources for the benefit of the African people. And finally, the unification of Africa under the banner of scientific socialism. These were the objectives of the independence movement. And we need to go back to the basics, you know. Otherwise, we'll be beating about the bush. Now look around Africa. The patriotic African revolution has started. It is boiling in Mali, it is boiling in Burkina Faso, and it is boiling in Niger. And it is clear that this wind of change will continue to blow throughout the African continent until the African people realize their dreams, their aspirations, and so on. Is it any wonder that leaders like Ruto and Nana Akufo-Addo and others are ganging up against the patriotic revolution which is emerging in Africa? Leaders like Tinubu and so on are talking about mobilizing troops to go and topple the leadership of the patriotic revolutions and so on. And I wonder what gives them the nerve to even begin to think like that. I mean, ECOWAS sent a delegation of heads of states to Mali. You saw what happened to them. They booed them. They saw the hundreds of thousands of people who poured into the street in support of the patriotic revolutions and so on. And the other thing which I keep hearing, which makes me crazy, is that, oh, it is always better to have civilians in power than to have soldiers in power. Who told them that? Who told them that? Check the record. Check the Ghanaian record. As a matter of fact, if you take the Nkrumah government, which was completely outstanding, which did so much, established 400 industries as well, which government comes close to Nkrumah? It's a Champon government. Operation Feed Yourself and Industries. You know, the effort to expand electricity supply and so on. Look at the record of the Champon government. And then, as if us or soldiers, they are not human beings. Soldiers are citizens like all other Ghanaian citizens. They have a right to participate in the decision-making process. Okay? They, like all other citizens, have to contribute to make sure that this economy grows. They, like all other citizens, have to ensure that our access to social services like education, health, and so on is guaranteed, and so on. You understand? So don't let us talk as if us for soldiers, they are not human beings or they are not citizens and so on. They are. Perhaps what we ought to be talking about is that their participation should be guided by democratic principles and so on. But they are human beings like all of us, and they are entitled to participate in the processes and so on. I look, you know, around, and I get really shocked. Look, what the Kenyans are protesting against includes e-levy, doesn't it? Look at how we handled e-levy in Ghana. Don't you feel ashamed? It is not about the fact that we didn't take to the streets. That's not the issue. The useless matters which occurred in Parliament to no effect. Look at Parliament. Look at Parliament. You have a situation where majority of the majority comes to the conclusion that the finance minister is underperforming and he has to go home. All of the minority comes to the conclusion that the finance minister is not performing, he has to go home. And yet when there's a vote, the finance minister wins. What a joke. Oh, what do these politicians take us for? How is that possible when the majority of the majority has come to the conclusion that the finance minister is no good, he has to go home. And all of the minority has come to the conclusion that the finance minister should go home. And yet when they vote, the finance minister wins. What kind of circus is that? You know, so Kwame, I hope that we learn the important lessons from what is happening in Kenya. And there's one more thing. I've been listening to commentary on the Western media and also locally. And they all tell you that, oh, this is a youthful affair. It's the youth. Who told them that? Who conducted that census? Who conducted that census? How did they determine that this thing is inspired by the youth and it's the youth who are leading it? It's the whole united Kenyan people who are engaged in a struggle to improve their destiny. You understand? As if, oh, as of this is youthful people, you know, some people go to the extent of saying that they have no experience and so on. And Ruto himself had the nerves to come and tell us that, as for the violence and so on, it's not by the demonstrators, for criminal infiltrators. Who are those criminal infiltrators? I should stop wasting our time with such useless analysis which has no basis at all. Why? If you take the population, the segmentation of the population of Kenya, more than 70% of the Kenyan people are young people. So if there's a manifestation in which young people appear to dominate, that's a reflection of the demographics of Kenya. You understand? Clear reflection of the demographics of Kenya. And we should stop peddling those stories. The people of Kenya are rejecting the neoliberal approach to national development. The people of Kenya are saying to themselves and the world that these IMF measures would not resolve the fundamental problems that confront them. You understand? And what are the IMF measures? 1982. We went to the IMF and the World Bank. What did they tell us? We should privatize state enterprises. We should devalue the national currency. We should redeploy labor, which simply means sack workers. You understand? Redeploy labor and so on. We implemented all those measures. Where did it take us? By 2000, money supply had gone up by 50%. Inflation was hovering around 49% and so on, in spite of all these measures. Now, guess what? The country representative of the IMF and the World Bank, when President Coup was coming into office, quickly wrote a letter to him telling him about how the economy had been destroyed and so on. And Coup bought it. Eventually, they pushed him to HIPIC. What happened with HIPIC and so on. Then, interestingly, by 2009, when Atamios was coming into office, the same people who were running the economy under Coup, IMF and World Bank, wrote to Atamios telling him about how the Coup administration had destroyed the economy. We should stop listening to these jokers. The economists in the IMF and the World Bank, are they better than the economists we have in the University of Ghana? In the University of Professional Studies and so on? Are they better? We have people here, academics, economics, lawyers, and so on, who are better trained, better understand our situation than those jokers in the IMF and the World Bank.
This is Evans from Kenya. Please do subscribe to the channel. It helps me bring you more valuable content wherever you are. So I want to tell you a story about a very, very intelligent man that has ever existed, and will never exist. This man is Solomon. He said one thing: nothing is new under the sun. Everything that we see happening here already happened somewhere else. It might be a place that we know, it might be a place that we don't know, but the fact remains one. The same sunshine that was there during the day of creation is the same sunshine we are experiencing today. So everything is new. Everything is not new under the sun. Nothing is new. Nothing is new. And the situations that are happening in Africa, the situations that are happening with African leaders in Africa, I'm speaking of leaders such as President Ruto, William Samoei Ruto, is a thing that has ever happened in the past. Remember, Kenyans are the ones who chose William Ruto. And William Ruto was having a candidate as well. He was not running by himself. It was a electoral process where we had William Ruto, Raila Odinga, we had Wajakoya, we had different people vying for the presidency. But the people saw fit that they elect William Ruto. By then, William Ruto was still the vice president of the country. He was the vice president of the then president Uhuru Kenyatta. Uhuru Kenyatta was the son of the first president of Kenya, Jomo Kenyatta. This is Kenya, father and son, Kenya. You see, Uganda, we also have a father president and a general son. Nothing is new under the sun. So what follows is this. The President Uhuru Kenyatta warned Kenyans, he warned Kenyans that this person that you want to elect, he is not a good person. Imagine the President William Ruto, while he was still the vice president, he wanted to slap the president. He wanted to slap the president of the Republic of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta. That tells you a lot. You know, the devil is always in the detail, but we tend to avoid this devil on the detail. We focus on less things and not on the major thing. The thing that Africans are experiencing today is the same thing that Israelites experienced during the days of the judges. You see, there was a time when Israel was being controlled by judges. We had Samson, who was a judge. We had women judges. We had different types of judges in different generations. And so it reached a time when Israel looked east, it looked west, it looked north, and it looked south, and it said, no, everyone around us is not being controlled, not being ruled. Ruled is the right word. Not being ruled by a judge, but they are being ruled by a king. And so they looked around and they said, come on, that is what we want. We want us to be ruled by a king. And so they took their plea to the Most High God, Yahweh. And they told Yahweh, we want a king. Yahweh responded. Yahweh is a good God. He responded and he said, be sure of what you want. You might be asking for your own demise. And they said, no, we want a king. We want a king just like any other people. We want a king we can see. So these people did not take heed of the warnings that God was giving them, because God was giving them a warning that this king whom you want shall be under you. You shall be under him, and he shall rule you with a rod and stick. He shall be overpowering you. Just the same way we see happening today. Judges, those people did not want judges. They wanted kings. And so because they wanted kings, God gave them the king. We had Saul, we had David, we had Solomon, we have Rehoboam, we had Jeroboam. The country split. Israel split into two. Just after 3 kings, it split into 2 because they were warned and they never listened. The same way Africans were warned and they never listened. You understand? The warning comes this way. Africans all over the world do not listen. Like, we don't listen. We really don't listen. We really, really don't listen. You see, here in Africa, the leader who will get the votes is the leader who gives us money, the highest amount of money. That is the leader who will win the votes. People are forgetting that the money you're going to eat is a money that is going to end very fast. It's a temporary, is very, very small compared to the amount of time you're placing this person on power. You understand? And so Kenyans, let me talk for Kenyans. I've only seen the Kenyan electoral process. We give money. They give, not me. They give money to people. And people run and fill the lines and take the money. What happens next? The person does not deliver. The person acts as he wills because he said, you ate my money, so you have to pay for that money. What is the expense of that? See what happened in Nairobi the other day. Like 24 lives, 19 lives according to the president, but according to the people, it is 24 lives which were taken. People had to demonstrate. People had to die for the president to have a change in mind, which might leave you with a thought. How did these people get into power? Like, how did they get into this position of ruling everyone? How did we elect them? How did they get there? I might have an answer to this question. First, Africans should stop focusing on the superficial. We should focus on the long-term things. Leave alone that money which the campaign person is giving you, the candidate is giving you. Because you think because he gives you more money, he will be okay when he gets into power. He speaks with a lot of sweet words, but he does not deliver when he gets into power. This is the problem of Africa and Africans. I have seen it myself. Our leaders have known our weaknesses and they're exploiting it. Now William Ruto is he has become different from the person people thought he was. The same people who are fighting William Ruto today are the same people who elected him into power. I myself personally, I did not vote for William Ruto. I voted for the opposition. That is whom I voted for. But myself and those other people who are fighting, we are fighting for the government to be changed. The government to make amendments to the finance bill it made. Like, we are all sharing commonalities. We are all sharing our struggles, despite you voting for another person, me voting for another person. Africans need to do a background check to individuals. Do not ignore the evil in the details. That is what I can tell you, my people. We've ignored enough. It's high time we rise up and we realize that we have to share our commonalities, which is Pan-Africanism. There is no unifying factor such as Pan-Africanism. Does not care about tribe, does not care about boundaries. Another thing which I was forgetting is this. Kenyans now, which are also Africans, are having problems with the tribalism. Kenyans are having problems with being given money. Tribalism, regionalism, nepotism. You understand? One thing you have to realize is this. We have tribes that are overpopulated and we have other tribes that are not overpopulated. As long as a president is coming from a tribe that is overpopulated, there is always a guarantee, there's always a good gesture of prospering, a good gesture of making it to the presidential seat. We are very tribalistic. We are very, very tribalistic. This demonstration is where I didn't see no tribe. I didn't see Kikuyu, I didn't see Luo, I didn't see Luya, I didn't see Masai, I didn't see Kalenjin, I didn't see Kamba, I didn't see Abagusi. I didn't see that. I saw young people. I saw the young generations. I am the young generation. In as much as myself, I am a millennial, but I saw the Gen Z. They were fighting there. We don't have tribe. Maybe it is us and the Gen Z who will come into power and dissolve this issue of tribalism. It's taking a lot out of us than it is bringing. Tribalism is one major factor that is making us elect wrong leaders. A leader might be good, but because he is coming from a tribe that we perceive is bad, we won't elect them. But why? Why is that? Colonial mindset. The colonizer came, he found tribes in Kenya, he found tribes in Africa, but he introduced one thing. The colonizer or the imperialist knew he had to use a tool. A tool that he wanted to use was the divide and conquer. Divide and conquer has been used in many ways, but how do they divide? We might know how they conquer, but how do they divide? They divide by devising things which are not there. In USA, they devised the concept of racism, the concept of white superiority, the concept of oppression and slavery. They invented them for them to clear their conscience and for them not to have cognitive dissonance, as explained by Dr. Joy DeGray. I love her works. Actually, go and read some books by Dr. Joy DeGray or watch her videos. I made one. Check on this playlist. You see? Tribalism is making us fall. Now, because in USA, the white person brought the oppression, slavery, the racism, and all that. In Africa, he introduced the concept of tribalism. He found Africans were together and he brought the concept of tribalism. Tribalism is not tribe. A tribe is a tribe. A tribe is my identity. But my identity should not be a problem to you. My identity should not be a problem to the spirit of Pan-Africanism. But the white person introduced tribalism, and he made tribalism to be a tool to make him conquer and then divide. To make him divide and then conquer. That is how he used. Now, after he left Kenya in 1964, we were left with African imperialists. We were left with African colonialists. These people who carried the same mindset and passed it to their generation that we are experiencing up to date. And so we have a new generation, a generation of young people that does not understand the language of the imperialist, and they do not understand the language of the colonialist. This is the generation of change. So, I'm ending the video here. If you find value in this video, kindly do subscribe to the channel. It helps me bring you more valuable content as days goes by, as time passes by. Be sure to subscribe. Give me a super thanks if you wish. Subscribe, like the video, and share it with your friend. Share the good information with your friend.